Hello and welcome. This is Pepin from a show that we like to watch called Pepin Reacts. And today, guess what? I am here with my best friend. His name is Meader. Meader, how are you doing?
I'm here too.
That is true. And what's also true is that we're in store for best, most exciting, fantastic episode called the show Breaking Bad, Season 4, Episode 9, Days Out from another episode. So this episode, I don't know what's going to happen. Last episode, we met Hank's daughter, Alyssa, and she seemed very cool. I didn't expect her to be a lawyer, but it just kind of how things worked out. And it kind of makes sense when you think about it. You know, it's like you see a plot twist, and then in hindsight, it's always 2020. So, yeah. Any thoughts on that, Meader?
I'm really excited to see how Alyssa takes this going forward. She brings a lot to the table.
And we got a question from a viewer. And based off this question, we actually put a poll out there. So I got two things here. Number one, what is your answer for this? I mean, you already kind of know. So just kind of get where your answer is for this prediction. I'll give mine. And then we're also going to predict what the poll presents. So the question is, who do you think is most likely to be pregnant on this show? So I did a lot of thinking about this, and I think there's only one potential answer, and that would probably be Jesse. I mean, he's always kind of moody. He's gone through a lot of changes. He's starting to like prep his home. He's got a nice TV in there. He's even got a bed now, right? It's almost like he's like nesting, I think they call it. Like he's getting prepared for that baby. So Jesse would be my top pick. Now you might ask, well, who's the father, right? And this kind of might actually answer a question we've been wondering for a while. Who's the baby? The baby is the father.
There's a really good chance of that. I think that's a good prediction.
Now, Meader, I want to know what your prediction is here. You know, if you hadn't seen the show already before. I mean, not that your memory's great, but, you know.
I mean, I remember the first time I watched this, and the whole time I was like, I had this strong suspicion that Skylar might be pregnant, but I wasn't completely sure. So that would be what my guess would be at this point in the show would be probably Skylar. Yeah. If anyone's going to be pregnant, it's probably going to be her.
Okay. So, the results for the poll. So, who do you think the audience thought was? Now, this poll is kind of like stupid if you think about it. I don't know why they suggested it, because obviously the people watching this have seen the show before, so they already know who the pregnant one is. But what do you think their top answer was? I mean, you might be surprised, actually.
I think it's going to overwhelmingly be the baby.
Well, I gotta say, you're actually right. 79% the baby. Which I was a little bit surprised with personally, but you know, I just hope it's not a spoiler.
What percent was Lewis?
Well, okay. I got into an argument with someone on this because Lewis was part of the poll, but then this person said that Lewis can't get pregnant because Lewis is God, and for God to get pregnant, that indicates that God not only has a belly button, but also has a pregnancy womb thing. And that wouldn't really make sense. I didn't really...
Well, then the baby's Jesus.
Okay. See, like, the thought was God can push off pregnancy to other people, but can't take on the pregnancy themselves.
We might be getting into spoiler territory anyway.
Okay. You're pretty good about not spoiling, but was there anything there that might have spoiled me?
I think there was enough difference in opinion that I think it's smokescreened enough.
Okay.
But I think there's some stuff there that's could be very true.
I mean, before you saw the show, did you think that Immaculate Conception was possible for, say, God himself? Like, he could self-conceive?
No.
No? Okay. So then, who knocked up God? See, that's the question that doesn't even make sense, right? Does
One
it?
way to find out.
Okay. We're getting into this episode. It may be a timer-based reaction, or it may be a sync-based reaction, which are the same thing. You know, when I say sync, I mean highlight, because highlights are things you get put in your hair. It's like, you know, shiny. You know, look at this. But look at the whole picture too, because if it's just all highlights, then it's just the same color. So we're gonna get into this in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Shit, I can't find the button. Okay, that was episode 5000 of Breaking Bad, season 6, episode 9. Now, this episode, so much happened. Kind of not, though. I mean, there's one big thing that happened, but mostly it was a lot of nothing happening. And I'm trying to get the exact plot details here. And I think it kind of is surmised in two things, which is that Walt is still, Walt is still a cancer in a way. Like, he's still diseased, but he hasn't grown. And that hasn't grown portion is like a metaphor for himself, right? Because he hasn't grown personally as a character, or he hasn't like actually escalated himself or improved himself in any real way. And I think the episode kind of demonstrated that, because Walt was kind of using this making of the meth to avoid his killing of useless, idiotic problems. But this whole episode was dealing with useless, idiotic problems. And just lots of tiny little minute details that don't matter that he just had to figure out. And so this was kind of showing him he still is diseased, although the cancer is in regression or remission, and it's actually even reduced. But he still has the full force of that disease, or the thing that he was feeling, because there's the sickness he had, which was the cancer, but I think there's the other thing on top of that, which is just the emptiness in his heart, as you know, demonstrated by that thing over his heart. And then he hasn't grown, and I think that's kind of what affected him most at the end there, where he just got mad and started punching the vending machine. And when I say vending machine, I mean like the thing that vends like paper towels, I guess. So that's kind of my synopsis there. I'm still trying to get my thoughts straight, because I feel like not much happened here, but I also kind of feel like it was a summary of Walt and his character in a way. Meader, what's your thoughts? About the episode generally, or you can give my thoughts.
I mean, I think that it was like the Walt misread the situation and like did a mad dash towards the finish line, and was on the precipice of death, which kind of, both with his cancer and with being lost out in the desert type of thing, just him and Jessie. And they walked away with an insane amount of product that translates into an insane amount of money. And then he's like ready to accept death in both situations, and ends up not needing to in the long run. He survives. Now he has to deal with the fact that he's not dying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of definitely the more direct plot element there. It's like, because you could say he's done something, right? He's has gone through a journey, but that journey hasn't given him the fruit he's looking for. Like, he's done this for his family, but then ends up he didn't need to do this for his family. Like, none of this had to happen. And so the sacrifice he made is a dumb sacrifice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, he's only 80% in remission, right?
Mm-hmm. It still could come back to. So there's that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if this is gonna be touched upon later, but I feel like there's something more going on with the thing in the chest. Like
Mm-hmm.
chalked it up to being but it's probably not that. I think it might have to do something with cooking the meth, because there's another plot point about Walt getting sick or something from some of the stuff they're working with at Gray Matter. I think like something with the fumes, and it potentially being cancer causing. So I almost wonder if that was like kind of a prelude to what's going to happen here with this whole cooking the meth. Like maybe it's going to cause some other issue.
Interesting.
But that's me overanalyzing. Like I don't know. I just take up these little details and I try to make a story out of them where maybe that story doesn't exist,
Maybe.
or maybe it does. Who knows? But let's cover some of the features of this episode. So we start and we have Jessie and I don't know her name. It's been a couple weeks. Jane. So we have Janice and Jane, and it looks like they're a couple, which, nice. Go Jessie. Jessie kind of gets talked into going to the museum, and I kind of felt he was a bit like Walt there when Walt was getting talked into stuff with Skylar and Sneeze. But it's like Jessie was more open to the experience, or maybe kind of living his life a little bit more than Walt was. Now, of course, they had very different mindsets, so maybe Jessie's thoughts there would be different otherwise. But that's what Jessie wanted to do, and then Walt gives a call, and Jessie gets talked into, or kind of almost bullied into going to cook meth, and Walt comes up with this great plan with Skylar of going to see his mom and getting some money out of her, or making sure the money goes to them if he dies. Which, they're building up Walt's mom. I don't know if we're ever going to see Walt's mom. I kind of hope not in some way, because that'd be funny. But I don't know. The way they're building her up, I don't know what kind of payoff they could give that would just be satisfying at this point.
She's the new Lewis.
It kind of seems like it, but she's like the devil version of Lewis.
Yes. For every Lewis, there's an anti-Lewis.
The show was really about the clash of Lewis and Walt's mom.
Secretly, the show will start to turn. And that will be the decider.
They have a giant battle in the end. So Jessie gets roped into it, and Walt is just like, I don't know. This is kind of the thing here. And this is why I think the theme of growth is here in this episode, because everything that Walt's kind of talking down to Jessie is acting as if Jessie hasn't grown in any sort of way, right? And like that's what all of his sort of like insults are like. Oh, what are you doing? Masturbating, smoking pot, doing this. Oh, like girlfriend? You mean stripper or hooker? And it's just like, just kind of like throws on these insults. Like, you didn't work for this, you're like not trying and anything like that. Where, maybe he's not trying, like, or maybe we're not impressed by the trying in some sort of way. Like, he got a TV. That's what they bonded over, him and Jane. But Walt's kind of giving these insults, but instead of Jessie not having grown, Jessie's actually grown quite a bit here. Like, he's running a successful business. He's got his own place. He's got a girlfriend. He's kind of doing things. He's got like a pretty decent life right now, I'd say, compared to how it was. And I feel like that's part of this disconnect here too. Walt hasn't grown, and he's treating Jessie like he hasn't grown, but Jessie has. And Jessie's still apt to getting bullied and kind of going along with it, but I think that's one distinction there. I'll let you play out that or bring up any points you think might be relevant.
I think Walt shows some growth with Jessie, or at least he did until stuff was bad. But when things were good, like when Jessie was like, she's not a stripper, he like apologized. And I think that was a really big thing for Walt to be like, oh, sorry. And he trusted him to get all the stuff, to pick him up from the airport. He slept while Jessie cooked, and he slept without a mask on while Jessie was cooking. So I mean, I think that shows a lot of trust in and of itself as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was willing to teach him, and he was actually impressed when Jesse was like picking up what he was putting down, and said like, "Good job." And then he was mad again, like very quickly. But
Mm-hmm.
I think he still sees Jesse as like being under his learning tree, but I think he also does see some of the growth. I
Mm-hmm.
just don't think he sees how much of the growth.
Hmm. Maybe the way I should put it is that the point I'm trying to make more is that Walt hasn't grown himself, really.
Okay.
I think he sees the growth in Jesse, but he was treating Jesse as if he hasn't grown. But you're right, in the episodes, definitely there were points where Walt did admit that Jesse had grown. But I do think it was kind of like back and forth a little bit. And kind of like maybe 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or a little bit. Because I guess maybe what it is more so is like when you're super urgent about something, you get kind of very like like everything revolves around yourself and everything. And so I think Walt stopped really considering like Jesse and his feelings and emotions and just tried to come up with something that would get Jesse to do what he wanted to and not really consider the real Jesse. So maybe it's just a lack of empathy as opposed to like a lack of seeing that growth there or potential.
Yeah. I mean, I think Walt was facing death this entire episode.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
He had already resigned to "I'm dying."
Mm-hmm.
Said he had that conversation with Skylar. He had that conversation with Jesse. He had that conversation in his own head a million times.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And one interesting aspect to that is that Walt gave the lie to Jesse, like, "Oh, the methylamine's gonna go bad," and that prompted Jesse. That's the lie that kind of got Jesse to do this. And I think I said during the episode, like, how is Jesse gonna figure out that lie? Like, there's no real way for him to figure that out. I mean, you could presume that maybe he would like look at a textbook or something, or do a little bit of research, or do something to find it out. But he just kind of trusts Walt on the chemistry for the most part, and there's no real reason. But then Jesse's very social. He's very street smart. He saw Walt and him just like dying, literally, like besides the actual dying of like starvation or whatever. And he's like, "Oh, I get it. You have a couple weeks left here, and you kind of got me here because this is your last run, essentially, is what this is about." And so that was a very smart way for Jesse to figure it out without, like he figured it out not through chemistry, but through social dynamics.
I mean, his aunt also went through it, and he was there in her final days. So I think he probably saw parallels there.
Yeah.
And also saw Walt's demeanor and all of that. But I think an interesting question is, why did Walt lie to Jesse about his reasoning?
Because I don't think that Walt had a good way of manipulating Jesse besides that reason. Because Jesse...
You don't think the truth of "I'm dying, I only have days left to live" would have made Jesse go out and cook?
No. Well, because we have to assume in that instance that Jesse's priorities would be for Walt to make all that money. I get that that's what Walt's ideas are, but I don't know if Jesse has those same values. Because I think Jesse might be of the opinion, dude, you're gonna die. Spend the time with your family. Why'd be cooking meth? Like, I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to set them up and everything, and it sucks, right? But they would probably want to spend those last couple of weeks with you and not with the money you leave behind them. So if his values were aligned with Walt's in that sort of way, then yeah, I think Jesse would be like, "Okay, I'll do you a solid here." But I think Jesse would think doing a solid would be not cooking the meth and having rather Walt spend the time with them.
I don't know that I agree with that. Especially the only evidence I have being that when they were laying on the bed and Walt was saying, I deserve this. And Jesse was like, "No, dude, you were doing this for your family." Like, he got it. He understood why he was doing it and said that he didn't deserve, like, dying of dehydration in the middle of the desert. Like, Jesse was on Walt's side for all of that. I think Jesse, if Walt said, "I'm dying, I need to cook to provide for my family," like, he would have gone and done that. I don't think there would have been any question. I think it would have worked just as much, if not even better, than the methylamine. It's going to go bad.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think this is a point of disagreement here, which is, could be fine. I think it's all time frame. I think if the time frame was not so constrained, like, okay, let's say it's like a year out, like I'm gonna die in a year. I think Jessie would say no, because dude, well, let's do it another time. If it was a week or like 2 weeks, then I think the answer would be no. Jessie would be like, hey, spend time with your family. If the answer was like a month and a half, I think Jessie might be more inclined to kind of cook meth for that reason. Because, okay, I get you. So we'll do this, and then you'll get that week or two with your family or whatever before you die. But that's my middle ground point of contention there. But, you know.
We'll just have to agree to disagree on that one.
Mm-hmm. But, so, you think Walt was impressed with the lie he gave to Jessie in that instance? Or
do I think he was impressed with his own lie?
Yeah, because he's been impressed with his lies in the past. Like, he's been like, yeah. But I kind of just feel this is just a more general lie, just like a lie of desperation than it was like a lie of calculation.
Right. The only lie I can think of him being impressed with was the one that fucked somebody else over. But that was more him being satisfied that he was fucking somebody over than being impressed with his lie, I think.
Yeah. Oh,
but I do think lying comes much more naturally to him now than it used to.
Mm-hmm. He did bring up a point that he's getting lost in the lies, so he's kind of getting lost in the stories, which it can't happen if you lie a lot. But so there's a whole thing with Walt towards the beginning. He sees part of, I mean, this whole thing where they go to like a lower class place to get the scanning done. For cost reasons, most likely. And Marie's there. Marie's just like, we should be going to like a more expensive place here, a place you can trust, which I think she's got a point there. And then she makes a point to kind of stroke her ego, I think, but I think it's also probably true to a decent extent, where a lot of times lab technicians know a lot more than you think, and they'll probably be getting a lot of questions, or the doctor will be asking a lot of questions. I think that's true. But I also think that a lot of times the lab technicians aren't going to tell you those answers, if you know what I mean. Like because they're not the doctor. They can't give medical advice or medical conclusions. Like, that's for the doctor to tell you. So, Walt thinking that he could ask that medical technician, hey, like, oh, how's it look? Like, they're not going to tell you. Like, yeah. So, but he sees, like, the thing there. I think you pointed out this pretty well. So, like, there's the black mark right over his heart, which is, like, obvious kind of symbolism. I wouldn't have caught it, if I'm being honest. I would have thought of it too medically, if that makes sense. A little less symbolically. But he's got a hole in his heart. But that's how he thought he knew he was going to be dying soon. But obviously that was not quite the case. And knowing we know later in this episode, Walt's question, I think now, is like, why am I feeling like such shit? Like, oh, why did I cough up blood? Why did this happen? I think that's what Skylar's thinking too. Like, why is he having this reaction if the cancer's regression? Like, he's not getting any better. He's getting worse, it almost seems. So that's kind of an open plot thread right now, I believe. I have my theory about that with being maybe the meth production. But it's yet to be seen. And so he comes up the lie, and they go out to this place to cook meth. I thought Skylar was going to be tailing him. Do you think my thought there was accurate, or do you think I was jumping the gun on that? Do you think? Because what I thought is that Skylar was going to drop Walt off, but then Skylar's going to stick around to kind of like watch out to see what he was going to do. That didn't happen.
You have reason to believe that.
Okay. I didn't know if that seems like it was a bit of a stretch of reasoning, but okay. And so Walt gets picked up by Jessie, and then they start cooking meth. Walt's got a dream. They're just bickering just constantly this whole episode. Like, just so much bickering, and Walt's just like fed up with it. But I guess he's just stressed about other stuff. And they kind of start becoming friends a bit more, like to get kind of chummy. They even have like the boom, boom, epic high five. Like, I haven't seen Walt that happy. And then Walt's like, we got to make more. But But then Jessie convinces him to, have a night off and have a party, which Walt did get talked into, which is surprising. And then they found out that they are stuck in the middle of nowhere. So give me your thoughts about some of those aspects in the plot. Do you think there's anything more there, or do you think it's just basic plot details?
I mean, they spent the whole beginning setting up all of the plot details that for all of their points of failure throughout.
Yep.
And I mean, that just seemed like pretty basic. But I think the work that Jessie and Walt did together, they worked like a really good team, and they both know how to do what they do.
Yep. Yeah, Jessie improves at a very fast rate. He picked things up very quickly, and they had it almost seemed a little bit professional there, the way they were doing things. I know Walt's professional, but their setup was looking more professional than it did before, a little bit less basementy. And this whole thing with the key, is that a thing? If you leave the key in ignition, it will kind of drain the battery if it does the ding ding.
Yeah, I mean, if there's anything on, like lights or radio or anything like that, that drains the battery for sure. Okay,
because I thought it was just if you put it in the kind of the on, kind of turn it a little bit. But all right, I mean, different cars, and that's an older one especially. I got the keyless one, so I haven't had a key one for a while here. But so they still have gas, they just can't get started, and they're kind of stuck there. And I feel like there's a little bit of a analogy there, just being stuck with what they're doing, and maybe more for Walt. He's kind of trapped alone, and he's dying. And the big reason why he's dying alone is because he's making meth. Of course, he has Jessie there, but he's not with his family. And then his line of communications are just kind of getting cut. Like Jessie's doesn't have any signal. Probably something there. Walt has a signal, but he's worried about Skylar seeing who he has the connections to, which they let him call Skinny Pete twice, it seemed. But that might come back into play if Skylar sees those calls. But do you think Skylar's looking at his phone calls?
I don't know. I mean, there's reason to believe that as well.
I don't think she is. I think she stopped caring at some point. But I don't know. So they go through this ordeal trying to kickstart the engine, trying to get it going, dealing with all these minute problems, and it's kind of bickering. And then Jessie does something to motivate Walt, which is kind of interesting because it's been working kind of the opposite way, where Walt motivates Jessie. But here, Jessie motivated Walt by reminding Walt, science, smart, brain, do brain thing. Come on, brain, robot, stuff, science. And he's like, chemistry? And then they ended up making a battery. And I don't know this to be 100% true, but in my vague knowledge of some scientific things, I'm pretty sure what the setup they had there was actually pretty legit.
I think the show producer and the director, Vince Gilligan, was very particular about everything he did to make sure that things were accurate. I know Mythbusters did a whole episode on Breaking Bad myths, and Vince Gilligan was there, and he's like, yeah, we gave a shit. So they do a really good job of most of the science stuff is really accurate.
Yeah. And there's actually it might seem a little bit far-fetched to some people, oh, you can make a battery that way? Yeah, sure. And it's yeah, you can. You can make a battery out of a lot of things. You can make capacitors out of a lot of things too. It doesn't take too much. I think the main thing is building up charge, but you can find these little science experiments where you can make a battery out of a lemon, because lemons have excess hydrogen electrons or something. But the lemons are very acidic, so they have I'm trying to remember if it's increased amount of hydrogen electrons. You can use those kind of or not hydrogen electron, but just extra electrons, and you can use those kind of get it from go one place to the other, because there's a difference in electrical charge. So those kind of things are very real. And I think you do that with a potato too. But, if you have the material, you can honestly make a battery. You can even make like a capacitor, which is kind of like a battery that has a fast discharge with a bit of like tinfoil and stuff. There's a little point where Jessie had like the tinfoil antenna thing, which I don't know if that would work. I'm a little bit confused on those details because it might. I don't know if aluminum is a good thing for that, but I'm probably thinking wrong because I thought you could use aluminum to like shield stuff from electrical activity. I don't know if it's good at transmitting it, but I might be wrong in that because I think transmission is something else, or I don't think aluminum is great for that, but I'm probably wrong. But either way, Walt was kind of like confused, but also very just like entertained by it. It seemed he had just a very confused kind of space, like, what is this? It's very, very intriguing. What do you think about all the bickering that was happening there? Do you think that was fruitful? Do you think like what did it mean for the characters exactly?
Oh, it seems like pretty standard. Walt just gets angry when things aren't going right and turns it out and blames everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he was escalating Jessie there, and then I think Jessie was putting up with it like well enough. And until the point where he just pushed Jessie a little bit too far. And then when Jessie started like barking back, like then Walt started backing down. So like I think Walt is I'm not gonna say a coward exactly, but he barks most when people can't bark back or when people don't bark back. And I don't think I've seen a situation where he's really kind of faced the danger and just kind of like. Actually, that's not true. Tuco, he did that with Tuco a bit, but that's the only person I think where he's kind of like just kept on the pressure and everything, and not questioned it.
I mean, Hank, specifically when the stuff wasn't going right with the fake Heisenberg getting arrested, when that was happening, literally he put himself between Hank and the situation. Mm-hmm. That's a dangerous position to put yourself in when you are the person that they're arresting. So,
Right. That's true. Yeah, maybe I'm overanalyzing this, which, it's fine. And so then eventually, science motherfuckers, it works, and they're able to get off and get away. And then we find out the cancer is in remission. And Skylar is like everyone's like super happy. Walt seems just like devastated in a weird way. And Skylar just seems confused. Like Skylar's confusion. The way I can read that is she's confused because Walt's still having lots of issues. Why is he having all these issues if he's getting better? Is that reading correct, or is there something more there?
I don't know. I mean, it might be that she was expecting bad news because Walt was expecting bad news, or she doesn't want to get excited ahead of. If there's any doubt at all, she doesn't want to like get her hopes up and then be crushed. So she didn't want to be like, "Oh, that sounds good," and then to have him say, "But this," and then her to be like, "Oh shit, so it's actually bad," or maybe she's misunderstanding. And I think it was kind of some disbelief there.
Okay, that would make some sense there. I guess that makes because that's how I'd be like. I hear any good news, and I'm always kind of wondering like what the bad news is, like
waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah, and Walt is very confused by it. I think number one because he thought he was getting. I guess this is another instance of his hubris coming to play, or his. You could say his pride maybe, but I think it's more hubris because he thought he saw that result with the chest sort of thing, right? And he's like, "Oh, this means I'm definitely dying," and ends up. I mean, he might still be dying if that's something else, but he didn't know what he was talking about here, and he was just going out on a limb. He's making bad calculations based off like data. He knows he's smart. He is very smart, but I think he's overestimating his smarts here, and he's getting into these weird predicaments like this, like just these very big mixed calculations.
And there might be something there too of Marie helping feed into that. By her being like, the doctors want to pretend they're so smart, but they're not really that hard to read. So then Walt feels comfortable reading it after specifically asking a technician, what do you see? So I think Marie kind of put some of that idea in his head of what you see is pretty obvious. Like it's going to be obvious when something's good or bad. And he saw something that looked obviously bad. So he's like, okay, it must be bad.
Right, right.
I can't see Walt before Marie having that conversation asking the technician, what do you think? You know what I mean? So I think that was kind of symbolizing she's in his head. Kind of set the stage on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. So that's kind of the impetus to do it. Now, I kind
obviously not to pull a Walt and pass the blame on to somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. I still think it is a bit of hubris, but I think it's a hubris that he wouldn't have taken on if not imposed upon by somebody else, or he wouldn't get that idea to look at. He probably's like, I don't know how to read these things, but now he's like, oh, I do know how to read these things. Of course, it's easy. All right.
If Marie can do it, I can do it. I mean, no. Would that not be Walt's type of thinking?
Yeah, that would be his Walt's. Yeah, that would be complete his thinking. I think the one thing that Walt admits he can't do is the social game. Like, he knows he's bad at that. But besides that, like, he thinks he's great at everything. Like, I don't know. Or he thinks he could be great, like anything science or math, which it's true, right? But kind of like Saul was saying, like, you know, where's your money? Like, you know, what kind of money are you making? Well, you know, how's this working? Like, you're doing this? Like, all the, like, little flaws in his, like, thinking and planning. Like, he does good this one thing, but not everything else.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
Saul continues to remind Walt, like, whatever you're doing is not been even close to enough.
Yeah. Which we still don't know much about Saul. I still have this idea that he has some sort of connections to, like, the real big drug gangs, particularly maybe the cartels, because he brought up some Spanish sounding names. So I feel like, you know, regardless, he's had some dealings with people who have been, like, deep heavy into kind of these illegal crime syndicates. So I think he just kind of knows how work is done. Whereas Walt's just Walt's has been kind of like, I don't know, fumbling around a bit. Like, they literally pushed a barrel down, and then they grabbed the barrel and they kind of walked it out. That's what they did. Right? I mean, that's not what people do. But I think I know why they actually did it that way. So this is going to be a weird, dumb aside, but I was thinking about this. I think they did it that way because when they were filming it, they couldn't roll it down because it didn't look right. Number one, it's like, because it's just an empty barrel. I think number two, it didn't sound right. Like, it just sounded like an empty barrel. And there might be ways to overcome that, but I think they just thought to take the easier route and just, like, walk it out instead, because then you can avoid those two sort of things. But I think the writers also kind of noticed it was a little bit silly looking, so they kind of made fun of it a little bit too. But I don't know.
That's a weird assertion to make that I don't agree with on any regard.
Okay.
I think it showed how bad they were at doing this type of thing. Like, even Hank, who's very lightly into understanding, like, how all this works, was able to be like, it's a barrel, idiots, roll it. Like, I think it was kind of showing how inept they were at doing what they were doing.
Okay. I think maybe another slight disagreement, because I can understand if it was something, like, a bit more complex or a bit more, I don't know. But, like, the thought to roll a barrel is not that difficult to come across or think of.
I know. I think that's the point. Like, they were smart enough to steal a barrel of methylamine, but they hadn't planned for a barrel. They had only planned for, like, small amount. So in the pinch, they just weren't thinking and they just carried it. I think it showed the poor planning, and it showed that difficult sciencey things they're good at, but the easy common sense things they were stupid at. Easy thing to think about if you were a criminal who actually knows what the fuck they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
Maybe stake the place out a little bit better, understand what their supply is, plan for stuff like this.
Okay. Okay. So in that case,
That is
maybe
an old plot point.
yeah, maybe I'm a little less certain of my point of view now. But that's how things are.
We'll have Vince Gilligan on in episode 300.
300. Okay.
Yeah, it's a surprise though. Don't tell Pepin.
All right. I'll try not to. So I'm trying to think of any other plot points here. I don't think much of the plot was pushed further, except for maybe Walt's news and also his anger at the end. We talked a little bit about his anger at the end. I'm going to kind of give my ideas. I think you gave your ideas, but remind me if you didn't. Like, what did...
I don't know. I don't remember.
What do you think him punching the air conditioner meant?
Paper towel dispenser.
Yeah, sure. Let's go with that.
Well, first off, it was a callback to he did the exact same thing when he got his diagnosis in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's getting the anti-diagnosis and he's doing it. But I think the first time it was Walt being frustrated, and this time it was more Heisenberg being frustrated. I think because it was shiny and he saw his reflection in it, and then he punched his reflection. It was like him punishing himself and being mad at himself. Obviously physically hurting himself, and then also it was him realizing that like everything he's done has been for nothing now because he actually had time that he didn't think he had. So he's kind of fucked everything up by thinking that he knew more than he knew.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Yeah, yeah. It's like the thing I have to remind myself with the show a lot is I don't know why, but I built up Walt's character a bit in my head as being this like almost like an all-knowing like superhero type character, which make it very clear he's not. Like he makes so many mistakes. And he has all these faults to him. And he's super smart, but also just very dumb in these specific ways. And so I just have to keep reminding myself he doesn't have everything together. He's kind of barely holding it together in some ways. And I think you're right there about the reflection point. I didn't know there was a callback, though. So I forgot about that whole scene. I still don't remember it, but... So you're saying that it was more Heisenberg being frustrated with the aspects?
I don't know. For some reason, and I may not be able to back this up now, but I got the impression that was Heisenberg punching Walt.
Mm-hmm. I definitely felt like is a little bit like in some sort of aspect there, like as if like sometimes you see in a movie where it's like the same look in the reflection kind of, but it's also slightly different, and I kind of got that sense. And I didn't know if it was Walt being perturbed by the reflection, which he saw as Heisenberg, or maybe it was him looking in the mirror but also not being able to see himself. He kind of lost himself in this process and who he is anymore. And then he kind of just battered anymore, so he couldn't even recognize himself. Like that was his way of kind of coping with that. Like in a way, what he's done to overcome these issues he's faced has changed him in a way where even if he does get to live on and kind of go back to his normal life, he's not the same Walt he was. And
he's damaged.
Damaged, yeah. And how he's not going to be able to have that life he wanted. It's almost like you try to create the life you want, but then by the time you get there, you're not the person who would enjoy that kind of life.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about that because I don't think he was planning on a life at all.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of his whole point. All of this was based around him dying.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Since episode 1.
Yeah. So I think we have one big plot point here that's going to be present in the future, which is that now they have a fuckload of meth, like a lot of meth.
Yeah, 40 pounds, 44 pounds or something.
And we could probably say it's about, they did the math on it, but probably about $2 million worth of product. And like they're celebrating about that, but the way they kind of set up the season here, it's not going to be good because they've already kind of set up that the cartels are annoyed with this Heisenberg for kind of walking on their territory. This isn't just like walking on the territory. This is just like, I don't know, like shitting in their territory. It's like it's doing something way, way more. Like this is like marking. I don't know. Some greater point I'm trying to make, but you get spat on a little bit, you're fine. You can kind of like fight back. But here, like being flooded with $2 million worth of product that displaces your own product in this whole area, and that's gonna get really, that's kind of go beyond just Walt's area now. Like he's gonna get massive attention there, and it's not gonna be good.
I mean, it had anyway. It said in the song, when they had that little song thing saying the cartel knows now that the blue meth has made it to Mexico.
Yeah.
So it's not only has it, like, did Walt kill the distributor in his area and then replace him with his own product and cut the cartel out, but it's also starting to press into like their home. And that's going to be massive. There's no way that's going to be okay.
Yeah, it's not going to be good for Walt or Jesse. Well, Jesse's kind of the unknown because people don't know about Jesse quite yet. I don't think it's all about Heisenberg. So what's Jesse's code name? What's that going to be?
I don't know.
Jesseberg.
I mean, he's Captain Cook, right?
Oh yeah, that's right, Captain Cook. Milfs. So we have a new poll that'll be going up after this episode. I haven't quite thought of the options, but Meader, I'll let you come up with this one.
What the poll is?
Yeah.
If Jesse wasn't Captain Cook, what would his meth dealer name be?
Okay. Option 1 would be Milf Magnet 5000. So that's one option. Option number 2, Meader.
Christopher Columbus.
Ooh, I like that one. This next one, it could be controversial, but Jesse, but instead of like the E, it's like a 3. And then instead of like, I don't know how you spell like IY or whatever, but it's just like just double E, like just E. Or let's scratch that one. I came up with the better one. Justy. There's like just E because he's just like in like, you know, justice, and E, and you say it kind of fast. It's like Justy, like Jussie. So
okay.
Option number 3, Justy. And then you think that one's good?
Oh, that's a very good one.
Okay, sweet. Okay. And option number 4, Meader?
Baby.
How do you spell baby, Meader?
Baby.
Okay. Is this the same sort of baby that we've been talking about throughout the series? The baby?
Maybe Jesse was baby all along. You had suggested it.
Okay. And hold on a second. Would this close a plot detail? Because if Jesse's pregnant and Jesse is the baby, but the baby is God, but God impregnated Jesse, but Mason's God, therefore, I just lost this train of thought here. Maybe that's the point of the show, is there's no train. It's just pure.
There isn't. There's only a camper.
In that camper, we make meth. So if you want to make meth, definitely leave a like in the comments. If you want to ring that notification bell, well, you don't have to, but if you do, kittens might meow. Meow. And also, if you want to subscribe, don't. Don't.
Don't do it. I see you pushing the button. Don't do it.
Listen, I don't want to force them to do what they want to do. I want them to struggle, because life often doesn't have meaning if there's not struggle involved, right? So if you struggle to push that subscribe button, if you're like, I don't want to do it, but I still did it, although it took all that effort, well, perhaps maybe that is what the meaning of life is the struggle, not the actual subscription. But at the same time, there's not much struggle, or there is struggle rather, in donating, right? Because donations come from your own personal pocket. So that's kind of like you transferring the struggle you did at work or by bugging that person and transferring that struggle into my bank account. So, hey, there is a Patreon. Don't donate there, because if you're mugging people to donate to me, I am very flattered. But I don't know if that's quite the right course of behavior. I mean, instead, I think you should maybe make some meth. You guys have a great day. This was Pepin from Pepin Reacts. You peace out.